This week, the FAA releases long-awaited flight time regs for airline pilots. The Air Force scraps the LAS contract with Embraer, and yes, aviation still has friends in high places. I'm Ashley Hale. Welcome to Airborne on Aero TV. In an action that the airline industry has long been expecting, the FAA on Monday proposed to substantially raise the qualification requirements for first officers who fly for U.S. passenger and cargo airlines. As mandated by the Airline Safety and Federal Aviation Administration Extension Act of 2010, the proposed rule would require first officers to hold an airline transport pilot certificate requiring 1,500 hours of pilot flight time. Currently, first officers are required to only have a commercial pilot certificate, which requires 250 hours of flight time. The proposal also would require first officers to have an aircraft type rating, which involves additional training and testing specific to the airplanes they fly. Pilots would be required to have a minimum of 1,000 flight hours as a pilot in air carrier operations that require an ATP prior to serving as a captain for a U.S. airline, and enhanced training requirements for an ATP certificate, including 50 hours of multi-engine flight experience and completion of a new FAA-approved training program. The public may comment on the proposal for 60 days after the publication on February the 29th. After weeks of silent controversy, the Air Force has canceled a $355 million contract with Embraer for 20 Super Tucano aircraft that it had awarded December 31st, effective Friday. The contract award, which is still being litigated, will be investigated. In a statement, Air Force Secretary Michael Donnelly said the Air Force Senior Acquisitions Executive David Van Buren is not satisfied with the quality of documentation supporting the award decision. Taco Gilbert, a retired USAF general and an executive with Sierra Nevada Corporation, which was to have served as Embraer's partner in the construction of the aircraft, said the company's submission fully met the requirements of the RFP issued by the Air Force for the LAS program, and remains convinced that the A-29 is the only airplane that meets the Air Force's requirements for the program. Hawker-Beech Craft, which was eliminated from the bidding process, praised the decision. CEO Bill Boyster said the company now looks forward to the opportunity to bid on the contract, which he said, quote, is about the U.S. Air Force's ability to build relationships with U.S. partner nations around the world for a generation to come. We continue to believe the American-manufactured AT-6 is the right aircraft for this critical United States mission. My, how the mighty have fallen. LightSquared CEO Sanjeev Ahuja has stepped down from his post at the startup broadband company under a cloud of questions about his political ties to the White House. The Washington, D.C.-based Daily Caller Online reports that documents and emails that popped up about a week ago showed several meetings between LightSquared officials in the Obama administration. Prior to his filing with the FCC for the wireless broadband network, Ahuja had given $30,000 for the Democratic National Committee, the maximum allowable contribution. He was scheduled for a meeting at the White House the same day. In the official announcement, the company gave no reason for the resignation. The news release announcing the move said he will continue to serve as chairman of the board. Well, it looks like aviation still may have a few friends, some of them in high places. 4 members of the U.S. House of Representatives are urging their colleagues to sign a letter protesting President Obama's proposed $100 per departure user fee. The 4 are Missouri Republican Representative Sam Graves and Georgia Democrat John Barrow, co-chairman of the General Aviation Caucus and Republican Congressman Tom Petri of Wisconsin, and Democrat Jerry Costello of Illinois, the leadership of the Aviation Subcommittee of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. In the letter, the representatives state, During these challenging economic times, the industry should not be saddled with more than $1 billion in new cost each year. This fee would have a devastating impact on commercial and general aviation, as well as the aviation manufacturing industry. The NBAA is urging its members to also contact their representatives in Congress and urge them to sign the letter. You're watching Airborne, more in a moment.
Since its inception, Redbird Flight Simulations has been dedicated to developing new training technologies and processes in an ongoing effort to make aviation safer, more affordable, and more accessible. Consider Redbird's flagship flight training device, the FMX, a superior quality, full-motion, feature-rich advanced aviation training device priced with real-world flight training organizations in mind. With standard features that are anything but standard, such as wraparound visuals, a fully enclosed cockpit, quick change configurations, scenario-based training compatibility, and of course, an electric motion platform, the FMX serves up a level of realism that is simply unavailable in other training devices on the market. For more information on Redbird flight simulations, the Redbird FMX, and Redbird's entire line of flight training devices, visit www.redbirdflightsimulations.com.
Welcome back. If you'd like to suggest a story for Airborne, Aero TV, our website, or a podcast, drop us an email to news-spy@aero-news.net. Anti-helicopter Chuck Schumer is at it again. Having failed to get helicopter noise legislation into the compromise FAA authorization bill, New York Democratic Senator Charles Schumer has broadened the scope of his proposal and is now trying to attach it to the Highway Trust Fund authorization bill currently being debated on Capitol Hill. The proposed Schumer amendment now includes language affecting the South Shore of Long Island and airspace over a state he doesn't even represent, California's Los Angeles County. HAI members need to let their members of Congress know they oppose legislation that puts greater emphasis on noise than on safety. Recognizing Schumer's proposal as bad lawmaking, the U.S. House of Representatives rejected the proposal when they declined to include it in their version of the FAA authorization bill and convinced their Senate counterparts to do the same during the conference committee meetings that led to the reenacted bill. HAI is urging its members to contact their representatives in Washington to voice their opposition to the legislation. In the commercial space arena, XCOR Aerospace says it has secured the financial backing it needs to make it all the way through production of its Lynx suborbital spacecraft. Tom Patton has that story.
XCOR Aerospace announced Monday that it had recently closed another $5 million round of equity funding. The company said that this equity round, along with anticipated and existing contracts plus cash on hand, should fund the company through production of its Lynx Mark I suborbital vehicle. Jeff Greason, founder and CEO of XCOR, noted that the company has a $60+ million backlog of orders for Lynx suborbital vehicles, as well as flights on Lynx. He said the company's unique, reusable, non-toxic rocket engines had also drawn the notice of the investment community. Work is continuing on the Lynx suborbital vehicle at XCOR, with the recent receipt of the Lynx Mark I fuselage, the continued testing of the liquid oxygen and kerosene propulsion system, the fielding of the non-toxic high-performance bipropellant reaction controls, and the recent release of requests for quotes with the cockpit pressure vessel and wing strakes. XCOR says it is getting closer to the vehicle's first flight. XCOR also announced a reformulated board of directors as part of the financing package. For Airborne, I'm Tom Patton.
Over at NASA, John Grunsfeld, the Associate Administrator for the Science Mission Directorate, named former veteran NASA Program Manager Orlando Figueroa to lead a newly established Mars Program Planning Group, tasked to reformulate the agency's Mars exploration program. Figueroa's first assignment is to develop a draft framework for review by March 15th. Times have been tough for most aviation manufacturers, but apparently not so much for Embraer. The plane maker recently delivered the 300th Phenom jet. capping off the latest series of milestones, which includes the assembly and first flight of the initial aircraft from the company's year-old Melbourne, Florida facility. Embraer recently shifted global operations for its business jets from Brazil to Melbourne, where it is creating 200 engineering and technical jobs in an area that was hard hit by reductions in the space shuttle program. Deliveries have been building since December 2008, when the Phenom 100 entered in service. In 2009, deliveries rose to 98, along with another 126 in 2010. In 2011, there were 83 deliveries. Embraer executives say the jets have been delivered to operations ranging from flight schools to racing executives. About half have been delivered to customers in North America. Diamond Aircraft continues to be looking better and better. Diamond released their 2011 delivery numbers with a strong showing in the fourth quarter, continuing the positive trend and offering encouragement for future growth. Against the backdrop of industry-wide flat deliveries in 2011 over 2010, Diamond has registered a 33% improvement, with 185 units delivered in 2011 versus 139 units delivered in 2010. Peter Maurer, CEO of Diamond's North American operations, said the company is cautiously optimistic but conservative with our production plans. He said that 3 years after the economic downturn of 2008, uncertain economic conditions persist in various parts of the world. But Diamond says it is seeing increasing interest from both private as well as commercial markets, and will consider further increases in our 2012 production rates in response to demand. In just a moment, our Barnstorming Commentary this week focuses on innovation in GA. I'm Ashley Hale, and you're Airborne on Aero TV.
The DFC-90 all-digital attitude-based autopilot delivers significant performance and safety improvements over previous generation systems. Its innovative flight envelope protection guards against autopilot-induced stalls, and the straight and level mode provides one-button recovery from unusual attitudes for an added measure of safety. Immensely popular within the service community, the DFC-90 is now being made available for a growing list of aircraft including Piper Matrix and Mirage, Cessna 182s, and Beech Bonanzas and Barons. Fly with confidence. Fly with DFC-90.
Thanks for joining us. It's time for this week's Barnstorming Commentary. ANN's editor-in-chief, Jim Campbell, has some thoughts about how general aviation can be vital again. But it's not going to be an easy road. The key word, innovation. Jim, take her away.
Thanks, Ashley. For the last year or so, we have been devoting an incredible amount of time to something we call the Aviation Transformation Conference. And while it's not going to happen on the schedule that we wanted it to, I have to tell you that we have been using the time to very good ends. We have been working hard with hundreds of people, have done a tremendous amount of brainstorming, a lot of discussion, an awful lot of research, talking about what we've done that doesn't work and what we might do that could work. And the fact of the matter is this: aviation, especially general aviation, all that we knew, is dead. It's an old model, it's a failed model, it can't work anymore, and we're dealing with a whole different world, a whole different society, and a whole new generation of needs, bureaucracies, you name it, that we're going to have to function in. So let's bring up one word and one word only for the foreseeable future: innovation. We're going to have to be more innovative than at any time since the Wright brothers lifted off of Kill Devil Hill. We need to start looking at what it is that makes airplanes work from a work standpoint and what makes airplanes fun from a fun standpoint. Let's look at what we can do to make it more affordable, less complex, more safe, more available, and be able to make our case more to the public at large and let them know that aviation is a welcoming industry, it's a safe industry, it's an exciting industry, and to coin a phrase, it's going places. Now, there's so many things that we need to look at. I mean, aviation, airplanes are too expensive, flight training is too complex, the regulatory environment is just absolutely insane. It costs too much to insure airplanes, fuel airplanes. God help us with the legal system. It's all just incredibly complex, and we can tackle it one step at a time. And no single change will save aviation. It's going to be a series of change, one after another, that creates a cascade effect and true transformative change. And that's what we're dedicated to. It's time for real change. and innovation is going to point the way. Over the next few weeks and months, we'll be talking to you about that. We have an Aero TV series that we're working on now called The Innovators, and these are going to be some of the top people from throughout aviation and aerospace and what they've done in their own way to really shake things up. And their discussion's not going to be about what they've done, but what they'd like to see done. And boy, will the discussion change after that. We'd like your ideas, we'd like your input, we'd like your suggestion, and we'd like your help. And we'll have more to say about that over the foreseeable future. In the meantime, for Aero-News, Aero TV, and of course Airborne, I'm Jim Campbell, thinking innovatively. Bye now.
An AH-1W Cobra and a UH-1Y Huey utility helicopter collided a week ago Wednesday night during a training exercise over the California desert, resulting in the fatal injury of 7 Marines. 6 were stationed at Camp Pendleton, and 1 was stationed at Marine Corps Air Station in Yuma, Arizona, according to the Associated Press. The accident occurred at about 2000 PST. The aircraft were operating in a remote section of the Yuma Training Range Complex, located near the Arizona-California border. It was favored by the Corps for training because of its similarity in terrain and conditions to the mountainous regions of Afghanistan. An official news release from Miramar Air Base in San Diego indicates that the names of those service members fatally injured are being withheld pending notification of relatives and that an investigation is underway. ANN extends its condolences and prayers to the families and friends of all involved. The NTSB has recommended that the FAA require repetitive inspection of cylinder assemblies made by Engine Components Incorporated, produced between May 2000 and October 2009, that are installed on Continental Motors 520 and 550 series engines. They require removal of these cylinder assemblies once they reach the engine manufacturer's recommended normal time in service between overhauls. The board says that since 2000, it has examined numerous ECI reciprocating engine cylinder assemblies that failed due to fatigue cracking that initiated in the root of the cylinder head thread, eventually resulting in the loss of compression and/or separation of the cylinder head into 2 pieces. These failures involved new assemblies installed on Lycoming and Teledyne Continental Motors 2 engines, and many resulted in fatal accidents. The FAA has not yet commented on the safety recommendations. Well, it may be a lot of bang, but it's going to cost a lot of bucks. A high-ranking Pentagon source says an operation of a fleet of 2,443 F-35 Joint Strike Fighters will cost U.S. taxpayers nearly $1 trillion over 50 years. That assessment came from Lieutenant General Terry Roebling, Deputy Commandant of the Marine Corps for Aviation. Roebling said that while it is understood that the cost of the program is high, everybody was on board to continue with initial low-rate production of the aircraft. He had just attended a ceremony involving 3 of the VTOL-B variant of the airplane at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. Roebling said that unless those costs can be constrained, the Pentagon will be faced with difficult choices, including buying fewer of the jets or reducing anticipated flight hours. All of those decisions, he said, are 5 to 10 years in the future. But while Roebling said that the program is unaffordable given the current estimates, the figure is a moving target while the aircraft is still in development. Among the factors that could lower operating cost are the airplane's composite construction, which will eliminate much standard anti-corrosion work, as well as the number of sensors installed on the aircraft, which will help maintenance personnel better isolate and address issues with the aircraft. Meanwhile, the Air Force reports that the Boeing B-1 bomber aircraft recently completed its 10,000th combat mission. The heavy bomber entered service with the U.S. Air Force on June 29, 1985, and has been in nearly continuous combat for the past 10 years. The milestone mission took off from a base in Southwest Asia and was flown in support of operations over Afghanistan before returning to base. The 10,000th mission milestone was reached with a relatively small fleet of just 66 of the aircraft. The B-1 began as a nuclear bomber and moved into a solely conventional role in the 1990s. It carries the largest payload in the Air Force's long-range bomber fleet. During Operation Iraqi Freedom, it dropped 40% of all weapons while flying only 5% of the sorties. Well, the ANN gang loves their gadgets, and this week, a couple of interesting new products have hit the market for BizAv and GA flyers. Eclipse has rolled out an iPad application written specifically for owners and operators of the Eclipse twin-engine jet. The Eclipse Quick Reference Application, or Eclipse QRA, provides pilots with the ability to use an iPad as a unique flight planning tool and for in-flight reference documentation. The Eclipse QRA includes a weight and balance flight planning tool, interactive flight checklist, and performance planning tools. In addition, the Eclipse QRA is capable of providing digital copies of the aircraft flight manual and the aircraft maintenance manual, complete with updated downloads of temporary revisions and other pertinent customer communications. And on the GA side of things, Adventure Pilot has started shipping its new GPS navigation device. The iFly 720 builds on popular features from its little brother, the iFly 700. New features include sunlight readability, simple automated Wi-Fi updating, iFly Streets, and premium hardware enhancements like a faster processor, more efficient memory, and an internal power capacitor. The company says will position the iFly 720 for future developments and enhancement possibilities. And now it's time for our AVW, the Aero Video of the Week. This week, a video of Maston Aerospace Systems' Zero vehicle performing an untethered launch, hover, and landing. The landing legs that extend from the fuselage of the vehicle just prior to landing will remind you of the artist's concepts. And yes, even the cartoons you probably saw as a kid. To find this video, go to YouTube and search for 061M Free Flight. The full video runs just over 2 minutes. And if you have a suggestion for a future Aero video of the week, you can send us a link to news-spy@aero-news.net. Finally this week, our closer belongs to the irrepressible Bob Hoover. Now, while he's always been our hero, we're amazed to see just how much of a hero is left in him. How so? Well, apparently pilot Chuck Garner was flying a P-51 Sunday afternoon on approach to Mobile Downtown Airport in Alabama. Garner dropped the gear but only got 2 green lights on the starboard main wheel and the tail wheel. Not wanting to damage the aircraft with a belly landing, the pilot got some advice on what to do from as good of a source as there is. You guessed it, Bob Hoover. Garner was patched through by radio, and Hoover recommended some alternating positive and negative G maneuvers. The port side gear light finally went green, and the landing was made safely. According to a blog appearing on the website Alabama Live, the P-51D is owned by Cavanaugh Flight Museum in Dallas. It was taking part in an Air Nostalgia weekend at Alabama Aviation Center, and we're happy to report it didn't get a scratch on it. Get comprehensive, real-time, 24/7 coverage of the latest aviation and aerospace stories anytime at aero-news.net. And join us again next week for another edition of Airborne here on Aero TV. I'm Ashley Hale. Thanks for watching. See you next week.